This was actually one that I recorded last. And I'm like, I have a video talking about there's something wrong with the Fever and how they look defeated, everything. And I still stand by those videos, especially because some of them are reactions at the time, right after the game. So I mean this when I say this. Fire Stephanie White yesterday. Like, fire her yesterday. And the reason why is not that Stephanie White is a bad basketball coach. It's not that Stephanie White is a bad motivational speaker. It's not that Stephanie White is doing a bad job defending her players. It's not any of that. It's that Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark fundamentally have different understandings of the sport of basketball.
Think last week's WNBA drama was intense? It just got even hotter if Linn Dunn didn't hold back, calling out Coach Stephanie White for how she's been using Caitlin Clark, more like a pass-first player than the powerhouse scorer fans know she is. And make no mistake, Dunn's comments weren't exactly subtle. This situation has it all: backhanded remarks, coaching controversy, and some serious Indiana tension. So, what's really going on? Why does it feel like Caitlin Clark's being held back on the court? Let's unpack this latest WNBA shakeup, because the behind-the-scenes buzz is just as wild as what's happening.
So I had a film breakdown prepared today, but I'm actually going to go a different direction. This is a rant, because we have to talk about the state of this Indiana Fever team, and I'm here to bring the reality to all you Fever fans. This team is not a championship team. They're not a championship team. They're nowhere near close to a championship team, because every team that is a championship team can play defense. This Indiana Fever team has no defense, and that's like the farthest of their problems. Their offense looked really bad today, and Caitlin Clark obviously didn't shoot the basketball well, but I'm not going to blame this loss on Caitlin Clark, even though obviously they would have won if she would have shot the ball.
Linn Dunn didn't just speak out, she came out swinging, full of passion and frustration. Watching Caitlin Clark stuck on the sidelines, just circling the court like she's part of a cardio routine, while the Indiana Fever run an offense that looks completely disorganized? That was the last straw for Dunn.
To go an entire game where they have not scored more than 20 points, where they have a quarter where they only score 9 points, and to call yourself a professional basketball team is pathetic. To call yourself a professional basketball coach of that team is pathetic. I watched that whole game, and other than Ari McDonald, Aaliyah Boston with a moment here and a moment there, nobody made any type of memorable impact on that game.
When Linn Dunn speaks up, it's not some quiet difference of opinion. It's loud, clear, and impossible to ignore. Forget subtlety or careful diplomacy. This was a full-on call-out that sent shockwaves from ESPN studios to the Fever's own locker room. Why? Because a string of coaching choices has turned Caitlin Clark from the college scoring sensation we all watched into what feels like a background player in her own story.
I said, man, I want to speak on some recent comments that I saw coming across about Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever, right? And this just speaks to a point that I made earlier about like people. It just shows that like how fickle fans are, right? And so, you know, like the Fever yesterday just lost to the Aces, right? And their record is 6 wins, 7 losses. Same thing for the Aces. Their record is 6 wins and 7 losses. But for the Fever, you know, you have people who are, you know, who want to already run the coach Stephanie White out of town.
Stephanie White, well-intentioned as she may be, seemed to think turning Caitlin Clark into a bystander was a smart move. Meanwhile, the offense looked completely lost, like it was being run on guesswork. Let's just say the energy was off. Linn Dunn wasn't about to let it slide. The second Clark's talent started fading into the background of a confusing game plan, Dunn stepped in and took charge.
The reason you lost was not because Caitlin Clark didn't score the basketball. The reason you lost is because you stopped doing what was working. What worked for the Indiana Fever, especially in that first half, was a pick and roll with Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. All you have to do is have a pick and roll at the top of the key. Off that pick and roll, 2 defenders are going to go with Caitlin Clark, leaving Aaliyah Boston to have a wide open lane. That is just the play you should go to every single possession. But how come we never go to it in back-to-back possession? We'll go to it one possession, the next possession we don't go to it. Why not? Stephanie White, why not? It always works. 2 defenders are always going to go with Caitlin Clark. There should never be a play where Caitlin Clark brings the ball up the court and then she passes it and she runs off the playoff ball.
When a GM like Linn Dunn speaks with that much fire, it's not just talk, it's a warning. Fix this, or face the fallout. This wasn't just about misusing a top draft pick, it looked like a full-blown identity crisis unfolding in real time. Drafting a once-in-a-generation player is one thing. Treating her like a backup role player? That's another story entirely. Fans saw it, Dunn saw it, Caitlin Clark constantly passing instead of attacking, defenders giving her too much space, and a coaching staff looking more confused than confident. Sure, maybe Stephanie White is trying to build something long-term, balance, development, whatever buzzword fits, but Dunn's patience clearly ran out. Because there's no world where you let your most electric rookie fade into the background while the team settles for low-percentage shots like it's a throwback to the late 90s. Clark was drafted to lead, not disappear. And Dunn, a seasoned basketball mind with years of experience, wasn't about to watch her star rookie turn into the league's most high-profile spectator. Her response? Loud, clear, and impossible to ignore, like someone slamming the panic button with both feet.
What was the game plan against her to slow her down?
Well, like I said pregame, it was just to try to make everything as difficult as possible. Like, Asia's one of the best players in the world. You're not going to stop her. So we just needed to make it difficult. And I thought AB did. But Asia did what great players do. And they step up in the fourth quarter. And that's what she did.
Caitlin's one of the real the past few games. Just what have you said to her, or what has she said about keeping that confidence and this?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is what we have to do as a staff to get her better looks, like higher quality looks. Every game plan is going to be to make her score inside the 3-point line.
So, what was the game plan? That's just it? There didn't seem to be one. The Fever looked like they were making it up as they went, more improv show than structured basketball. One moment, Clark's racing down the court like she's about to take over. The next, she's standing in the corner watching a teammate force up another isolation shot, like it's part of the team's routine, and you could see it on Clark's face, that calm but clearly annoyed expression. The kind of Midwestern politeness where the smile tightens, the nod slow down, and you just know she's mentally redesigning the entire offense. Fans noticed too. They dove in like detectives, analyzing clips, drawing up diagrams, trying to make sense of it all. It got to the point where people were wondering if Stephanie White was running some kind of test to see how far you can sideline the best shooter in women's basketball before the GM loses it. And the wild part? Clark didn't even need the ball to highlight the chaos. Her off-ball movement basically shouted, "This isn't working." Defenders stuck to her like glue, because they know what she's capable of, even while her own offense looked lost, both on the court and in spirit.
So yes, the definition of Murphy's Law is anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Now, I'm being kind of dramatic here, but the Indiana Fever are down coach Stephanie White for an indeterminate amount of time. She is out for personal reasons. Stephanie White and her partner, Lisa Salters, who is also a sideline reporter for some NBA games. She is a sideline reporter for the NFL. They were both out at the same time, most recently, like a couple weeks ago. This is completely a personal reason, but there's obviously something that they're dealing with at home. But the adversity that the Indiana Fever have faced this season, I don't know that I've ever seen a team just go down so many key players and key factors to the roster. I don't know if a coach would be like a key roster member, but
Linn Dunn didn't just notice what was happening, she was furious. Watching your franchise star get treated like a background prop in a badly directed play is enough to make any experienced executive question what's going on. She saw the shot opportunities disappear, the spacing fall apart, and the offense slow to a crawl while Caitlin Clark stood wide open, ready, and completely overlooked. Naturally, social media exploded. Fans turned into armchair coaches overnight, flooding feeds with play diagrams and clips from Clark's NCAA days like they were proof of a forgotten truth. The message was loud and clear, let her play. Meanwhile, Fever fans were quietly hoping someone, anyone, would step in and give the offense some direction. Even a working whiteboard during timeouts would have been a start. By the time Dunn took action, the situation was so far off course it felt like the team needed a full-on basketball intervention, and if going public was what it took to snap things back into shape, Dunn wasn't afraid to do it. The clock is ticking, and you don't draft a once-in-a-generation player just to have her standing around while the offense plays a game of hot potato. With no fire. It all felt so strange, it could have been a documentary. Who silenced Caitlin Clark? But the twist? It wasn't some elite defender or clever scheme. The problem was sitting right there on the sideline, clipboard in hand, drawing up plays from the unofficial manual, how to misuse your franchise star.
Even different understandings. What Stephanie White wants to do is not going to work for this team. It is not going to work for this team. What Stephanie White wants to do will not work. And by the way, I'm not saying what Stephanie White wants to do is won't work in general. Won't work in general. Because it has worked. She's had success. But I'm saying what Stephanie White wants to do will not work for this team specifically. And let's take a listen to what Caitlin Clark said. And she essentially exposed that Stephanie White wants them to play slow.
This wasn't just an off night, it was a showcase in total confusion. The plays looked improvised, like no one knew what was coming next. Watching Caitlin Clark stand off in the corner, barely involved, felt like giving Picasso a brush, then tying his hands behind his back and asking him to supervise. Meanwhile, fans around the world were losing it. Reddit threads exploded, memes flooded timelines, and everyone from analysts to former players weighed in. Was this some bold new strategy? Or just a complete breakdown in coaching logic? That's when Lin Dunn stepped in, sounding like every frustrated fan who's yelled at their screen in disbelief. This wasn't a quiet executive checking in from the background. This was a full-on basketball intervention. And she didn't sugarcoat it. She didn't dress it up or downplay the issue. She said what everyone was thinking, and she said it loud. Caitlin Clark wasn't brought to Indiana to quietly pass the ball around. She's not a decoy, she's a game changer. Keeping her on the sidelines while the team struggles to finish at the rim? That's not strategy. That's sabotage.
About the difference we've seen from Caitlin Clark since that Connecticut Sun game. I think she is partly sick, but there are also a lot of other issues going on. She's been a completely different player. And I don't mean just missing the threes. There is no fire there. There's no arguing with the officials. There's no getting the crowd revved up. It seems like she's almost checked out, resigned herself to being less than in order to please a coach that wants to take away Caitlin Clark's strengths. I don't know how else to describe it at this point. As you can see in this picture, I saw this. I want to share this because this just gave me flashbacks to early last season. Now, of course, Christy Sides doesn't have the ego that Stephanie White does, and she recognized what was going on and basically eventually post-break gave Caitlin Clark the keys and said, do your thing. But does Caitlin Clark look okay? And Steph yelling in her ear, nope, absolutely, she does not look okay.
Then, the silence shattered. The noise got louder. Suddenly, the entire basketball world took notice. This wasn't going to be swept under the rug, not with Lin Dunn charging forward like a storm of accountability. She made it clear, this is bigger than just a few missed plays. This is about wins, respect, and possibly the very future of the franchise. Now, with everyone watching and tension thick enough to cut with a Gatorade cap, the spotlight is on Stephanie White. Will she stick with her original plan, or finally unleash her star player? Because this isn't just about playing time or shot counts. It's about identity, leadership, and the serious mismanagement of a generational talent. What we're seeing isn't careful development, it's denial. You can't house train a lion. And Caitlin Clark is that lion. To be fair, coaching a rookie is tough. Coaching a phenom with a national spotlight? Even tougher. But the real mistake? Ignoring what you have. You don't draft a player like Clark and use her like a role player, hoping no one notices. You don't turn her highlight reel into background footage. Yes, Stephanie White is a respected coach with real experience. But somewhere between planning and execution, something went wrong. Maybe she thought bringing Clark along slowly would keep the pressure down. Maybe she wanted to shield her from burnout. But here's the truth, when you've got a cannon, you don't use it to toast marshmallows.
I'm sorry, but this is a regular season game. There's no player that's going to be that depressed about a loss. The emotion that she's having right now, that's emotion that you have when you lose a championship. But they didn't lose a championship. So it's only one other thing. It's the coach. I knew something was up, y'all. I played basketball all my life. I played point guard. There was something off about Miss Caitlin when I was watching that Aces game. And I couldn't put my finger on it. It just seemed like Miss Caitlin, she was definitely unmotivated. She looked defeated the whole game. She didn't look like she was having fun. And that is always because of the coach.
The WNBA isn't a charity league, these women play to win. And the Fever have a once-in-a-generation star in Caitlin Clark, a chance fans have been dreaming of for years. They didn't fill arenas just to watch Clark pass the ball to teammates who treat the basket like it's off limits. Tensions in the locker room are simmering, like a mid-season trade rumor you can almost hear buzzing. You can imagine the players thinking, why is our best player acting like a background actor while I'm launching contested shots like it's 2013? Meanwhile, Clark puts on a polite smile for the cameras as reporters ask about her limited role, as if it's some national scandal. At this point, it kind of is. Here's the thing, everyone saw this coming. Fans, analysts, even that one TikTok creator making WNBA memes from his basement, everyone knew Clark needed freedom, not a leash. But there she was, tied down by plays that looked like they were sketched by someone who'd only glanced at a basketball game once on TV. Then Lin Dunn stepped in, like that no-nonsense auntie who's had just about enough. If sass were money, she'd be rich beyond belief. Her message was clear: this isn't how you build a star. This is how you wear one down, fast. The basketball world blew up. Every commentator, from cable sports shows to your cousin's podcast, had something to say. The verdict? Stephanie White might want to rethink her job description, and then, like any great sports drama, the plot thickened. Whispers of lineup changes, new rotations, and a fresh offensive game plan started to spread. It was like Dunn walked into the team meeting with a flamethrower and said, "Enough is enough."
All right, Fever fans, it's time to have a very difficult conversation. One that we don't really want to talk about. The question is, what are we going to do about Stephanie White? You know, a lot of you were screaming, get rid of Christy Sides. For Stephanie White, you were happy, you were excited, you were stoked. But I think Stephanie White has a lot to do with this team's failures. Some of you out there, of course, will put this on Caitlin Clark's play in the last couple of games. But I put it on the scheme. I put it on the game plan because a really, really, really good coach looks at its talent. Kelsey Mitchell, Boston, Caitlin, and go, they make a game plan to make that work.